Family, it's Dr. Stephanie Remke, and I am doing a Mito Monday, and I didn't announce it ahead of time, but I just decided last minute to do it. Actually at the dog park, I just left, and it was where I did the very first kind of announcement to say, hey, I woke up and I think I need to do this, so I just take it as a sign that I should do one tonight for you guys. So it's kind of a shout out to my sister Kim and to Karen, my office manager, because even though they didn't totally ask me these questions, but kind of it's come up recently, and my sister specifically. So a lot of people have, it's actually a shout out to my mom as well, because she wants to get her genetic, her DNA done, and she asked me about it when she was just here recently, saying, something, asking about it. I'm like, I've done it forever ago on me and my son and whatever. So she was like, she wanted to know a lot of the genetics information. And she was more interested in ancestry, because it's really common that a lot of people will say, I'm German, or I'm Russian, or I'm Jewish, and they get their DNA done, they find out you're not really that at all. Your people might have lived in Germany, but they aren't German. So that just kind of happened with a cousin of mine, and she kind of announced it on Facebook to everybody, and it led to a lot of discussion about it. So that comes from the nuclear DNA information. So it's what most of you consider the reason to get something like 23andMe or Ancestry.com done. I've always used 23andMe because I take that information for patients. Run it through different websites that give us information on probabilities in methylation or vitamin D receptor volume on a cell. There's a lot of little pieces of information you can get from that. When I've gone on here before, I was really clear talking about the methylation mutations, the MTHFR hysteria that is seeming to be generated by functional medicine folk, whether it's physician, chiropractors, naturopath, or whatever, that a lot of people are getting funneled in the wrong way or supplemented the wrong way or something based upon just genetic SNPs. That is just a SNP or a piece of information about your nuclear DNA, right? What you get from your mom and your dad, and how half and half and things combine, and it's in your what you learned in some basic 8th grade biology about a cell. In the nucleus is the DNA, which holds the chromosomes, which holds, we have 23, so that's why it's called 23andme.com as a website where you can take a little, a Q-tip kind of thing, and scrape it on the inside of your cheek, and you get some cells, and they use that to, I got a lot of mosquito bites at the dog park. It's kind of crazy. Didn't have my oils with me. And you send that in this little tube, and they run your DNA. So a lot of you have already had it done, but there's a lot of pieces of information in there that you haven't been using. You just wanted to know, are we Irish or African or Scandinavian or whatever, and different things like that. So you can take that information, just so you know, and run it through a couple other websites, mostly for free. One that I have my clients do is take it through geneticgenie.org. They do ask for a donation, and I say give them a little bit. And it links up with your 23andMe information, and you get all this genetic information based on all those genes, and that's where people are finding about the MTHFR or the CBS or the COMT. And it's important. It gives us some type of insight as to what you might be struggling with, but supplementation isn't taking things in your mouth or changing your diet. They aren't the only way, and you can have a lot of mutations and have absolutely perfect biochemistry without having taken anything. So there's a lot of things that in the environment, the way we interact with it, that affects how that's going to work, plus all these other genetic codes that are inside of us. So there's all the biome within your gut and elsewhere. So the other piece of information, there's another DNA in your cell, okay? It's way more important, in my opinion, than the genetic DNA. Short of there being some major mutation which can lead to something significant. Let's say, as where people know of, the most famous one, common that people know of, is trisomy 21, which we call Down syndrome, which is something on the 21st chromosome, right? It's 3 of them, trisomy, and it leads to characteristic body features and things like that with somebody that we know is having Down syndrome, okay? So it's not that the genetic DNA isn't important, but outside of those types of mutations, it's not as important as everyone's trying to make it be or to sell some story. You are not destined by this. It's a probability, not a blueprint. So the things that are another piece of DNA that's inside all of your cells, and you have way more of it, are mitochondria, okay? They are not human. They are not something our cells have made. They are bacteria that we've joined with a long time ago. So they have their own separate amount of DNA information. So on 23andMe, you can find out your mitochondrial DNA. And what that kind of leads to is finding out what's called your haplotype. And I'm going to post a couple pictures underneath in the comments immediately when I'm done to kind of show you what I'm talking about and what these different mitochondrial DNA sequences have shown us. So mitochondrial DNA is only passed down from the mother. When the sperm and the egg join, there's a lot of things that going on, but the mitochondria don't want to mix. All the male-influenced mitochondria gets thrown out. Okay, it is all maternal for forever. That was proven by the great researcher Dr. Wallace. I posted a video a few days ago, very sciencey. Some of you watched it. So if you want to go back, I posted it, I think last week on Monday in place of a Mito Monday and say, well, this is the kind of stuff I watch or read and things and try to synthesize. So I'm going to take a small piece that he talked about at about, I don't know, I think the 36-minute mark or something like that, where he really rapidly kind of goes through the mitochondrial haplotypes. But the main point is to say when people are evolving, L0 is this African equatorial type of mitochondria that is incredibly efficient at making ATP. Because if you lived in Africa a long time ago near the equator, it was super hot. And animals didn't freeze and die. So they ran, and they might eat you. So you needed to be able to run to get away from anything trying to eat you. So your mitochondria at this L0 is designed to be incredibly efficient and do what we call, it doesn't uncouple. It makes tremendous amounts of ATP and tremendous amount of energy that way, so you can have explosive, fast running, no waste of energy, and it by no means do you need to make heat because it's already hot. It's very hot there, so it's not cold, right? So then it goes, there's L1 and there's L2. This is all African. L1, L2, I think, are pygmy lines, but still this Central African. Then you had this migration that happened, and I'll show you a little picture, and then it turns into an N type, and then you have the M. And so as people left Africa, the mitochondria DNA went through some mutations to make them more adaptable to this changing environment, because the mitochondria are all these little bacteria that used to be out in the environment, but now they can still sense the environment through our body. You know, roughly you've got 1 trillion cells in your body. You've got at least 100 trillion mitochondria, and they're alive beings, maybe sentient, who knows, right? But they have receptors, as is your whole body, to sense the environment. And the thing that they're best at sensing is light frequency. And different light frequency, heat is light, by the way. It's infrared, it's heat. People kind of forget that. So it senses all that. So it made some adaptations because bacteria can evolve rapidly. This is what we know, why there's MRSA and other things like that. They're rapidly mutating to changes in the environment and anything we're trying to do to kill them so they can survive. The human DNA isn't that fast at its capability of evolving, but mitochondrial DNA is. So it started making a lot of changes. So as people went further north, they started getting into Sweden and Siberia, where, cold. the mitochondria are like, ooh, yeah, this is cold. So we need to make some changes. And it needed to learn to not make as much ATP because there's no lions living in Norway, right? And the elephants, they freeze. I mean, there came a point like nothing could chase you, really. So they didn't have to run away, be real fast, but they needed to be warm. So their mitochondria started mutating and started making changes so it could give off infrared heat more at a faster rate. So it's what we called uncoupled. It became more energy inefficient. Let's become inefficient at taking calories and turning them into energy, and let's leak more heat because, you could freeze, you can die. So that's a piece of information that might not seem important to know what your haplotype is, but you can find it out on 23andMe, and it kind of lets you know what's that primary maternal genetic ancestral line in you. And it's kind of fun because some people, I'm always teased because I'm cold. I'm from Detroit, and I now live in Atlanta for 20 years now or something, and it's too cold here. In the winter, we have on the Uggs and the North Face. I mean, I do, and there's a lot of heat going on in my house, and I don't like it. I don't like the snow. I don't need to be in it. Everybody teases me. They're like, well, you're from Detroit. I'm like, yeah, but I don't live here. I'm from some other places ancestrally, and my people are from these other places. So I am actually an L1 haplotype, so just above the L0 African pygmy tribe, which I'm 5'11", so I find that ironic. But I am very efficient at, my mitochondria don't uncouple, and I can burn a lot of energy and very efficient, but I don't give off infrared heat. I'm not that. So cold environments are very hard on my body. All the more reason why I only want to go to a beach. It makes perfect sense. That's right. I only want to be there. So kind of knowing that information helps you be able to see what are some optimal places for you, or why it is so hard for me to live in Detroit, why I can't go back there. It's just too cold. I can't handle those winters. And why even Atlanta is perhaps becoming, is too far north.